Hello, my sweet peas and sugar dumplings. Welcome to another story time with Shine and Nathan. As always, I'm grateful to have you here so I can tell you a beautiful story to allow you to relax, unwind, and enjoy your day. Now, if you followed me here from TikTok, of course, I'm grateful you did and welcome. And if you found me organically via whichever algorithm you have found me from, welcome. Sit down for a spell and relax. Now we're doing another Gothic tale by Ambrose Bierce, and this one was published in 1905. Now here's the point where you can pause here to get some snacks, something to drink, get all cuddled up and listen, or you can set me down and go about your day while you listen to me tell you a story. Remember not to forget to turn on that notification bell, like, and subscribe, and tell me in the comments where you listen to this from. Now, before I begin this tale, this is a disclaimer. This tale includes themes and parts of a time from 1860s that we know as what has happened of the harm against the Native Americans. And mind you, only read the first page or two of this short story. But we will always want to remember what the truth was that is the Native American story and how they were harmed and persecuted in that time period. Now, this is from a perspective of this guy, and let's continue on, because remember, people's mindsets were different back then, and now we know the tales of what happened to Native Americans, even though what is projected in certain histories projects this whole like, oh, we were the valiant heroes, when the Native Americans were really ones being harmed. So I want you to remember that as I tell you this story. As always, let's get into A Man with Two Lives by Ambrose Bierce. Here is the queer story of David William Duck, related by himself. Duck is an old man living in Aurora, Illinois, where he is universally respected. He is commonly known, however, as Dead Duck. In the autumn of 1866, I was a private soldier of the 18th Infantry. My company was one of those stations at Fort Phil Kearny, commanded by Colonel Carrington. The country is more or less familiar with the history of that garrison, particularly with the slaughter by the Sioux of a detachment of 81 men and officers. No one escaped, through disobedience of orders by its commander, the brave but reckless Captain Fetterman. When that occurred, I was trying to make my way with important dispatches to Fort C.F. Smith on the Bighorn. As the country swarmed with hostile Indians, Native Americans, I traveled by night to conceal myself as best I could before daybreak. The better to do so, I went afoot, armed with a Henry rifle and carrying 3 days' rations in my haversack. For my second place of concealment, I chose what seemed in the darkness a narrow canyon leading through a range of rocky hills. It contained many large boulders detached from the slope of the hills. Behind one of these, in a clump of sagebrush, I made my bed for the day, and soon fell asleep. It seemed as if I had hardly closed my eyes, though, in fact, it was near midday, when I was attacked by the report of a rifle. The bullet striking the boulder just above my body. A band of Indians, Native Americans, had trailed me and had nearly me surrounded. The shot had been fired with an extremely incredible aim by a fellow who had caught sight of me from the hillside above. The smoke of his rifle betrayed him, and I was no sooner on my feet than he was off his, rolling down the declivity. Then I ran in a stooping posture, dodging among the clumps of sagebrush in a storm of bullets from invisible enemies. The rascals did not rise and pursue, which I thought quite queer, for they must have known my trail, that they had to deal with only one man. The reason for their interaction was soon made clear. I had not gone 100 yards before I reached the limit of my run. The head of the gulch, which I had mistaken for a canyon. It was terminated in a concave breast of rock, nearly vertical and destitute of vegetation. In that cul-de-sac, I was caught like a bear in a pen. Pursuit was needless. They only had to wait. They waited. For 2 days and nights, crouching behind a rock topped with a growth of mesquite and with the cliff at my back, suffering agonies of thirst and absolutely hopeless of deliverance. I fought the fellas at long range, firing occasionally at the smoke of their rifles as they did at the time of mine. Of course, I did not dare to close my eyes at night, and lack of sleep was a keen torture. I remember the morning of the third day, which I knew was to be my last. I remember rather indistinctly that in my desperation and delirium, I sprang out into the open and began firing my repeating rifle without seeing anybody to fire at. And I remember no more of that fight. The next thing that I recollect was my pulling myself out to the river just at nightfall. I had not a rag of clothing and knew nothing of my whereabouts, but all the night I traveled, cold and footsore, toward the north. At daybreak, I found myself at Fort C.F. Smith, my destination, but without my dispatches. The first man that I met was Sergeant named William Briscoe, whom I knew very well. You can fancy his astonishment at seeing me in that condition, and my own at his asking who the devil I was. "Dave Duck," I answered. "Who should I be?" He stared like an owl. "You do look it," he said, and I observed that he drew a little away from me. "What's up?" I added. I told him what had happened to me the day before. He heard me through, still staring. Then he said, "My dear fella, if you are Dave Duck, I ought to inform you that I buried you 2 months ago. I was out with a small scouting party and found your body full of bullet holes and newly scalped, somewhat mutilated otherwise. Too, I'm sorry to say, right where you say you made your fight. Come to my tent and I'll show you your clothing and some letters that I took from your person. The commandment was as your dispatches." He performed that promise. He showed me the clothing, which I resolutely put on, the letters, which I put into my pocket. He made no objection, then took me to the commandant, who heard my story and coldly ordered Briscoe to take me to the guardhouse. On the way I said, "Bill Briscoe, did you really and truly bury the dead body that you found in those togs?" "Sure," he answered. "Just as I told you, it was Dave Duck, all right. Most of us knew him, and now, you damned imposter, you better tell me who you are." "Oh, well, I'd give something to know," I said. A week later, I escaped from the guardhouse and got out of the country as fast as I could. Twice have I been back, seeking for that fateful spot in the hills, but unable to find it. Ooh, spooky. Then who is our storyteller, David William Duck? I think I may have pronounced Buck on occasion, to be honest. And this was a Man with Two Lives by Ambrose Bierce. Now, as we know, what happened with the Native Americans was them trying to protect themselves against the aggression of the white colonial settlers, and against, I think it was Manifest Destiny at that point. If you can feel free to correct me. But these stories are important for us to still read and learn from, because you can see the mindset of people of that time. And this one was published in 1905, if I recall, so significant time after, but the mindset still stuck and still continues prevalent unto this day. And so I think it's very important for us to remember the true tales of the people that were being exterminated throughout the country. And to be honest, this was the first time me fully reading it, because Ambrose has proven to be a good writer in terms of, Gothic stories, the ones that are peculiar in that way. And so I hope you enjoyed this telling. I have many more coming in this format. Let me know how I sound with holding the mic this way, because I experimented with it on my lapel and the mic sound was evidently lacking. Now, if you enjoy my content, remember to consider becoming a patron on my Patreon for as low as $3 to $5 a month at patreon.com/ShiningNathan. And a special thank you to all my patrons. I give y'all gratitude every single day whenever y'all see these, but I truly do mean it. Now, I leave out of the country for a little bit, but I'm going to record as many of these as I can so you continue to have this type of content. I love you, honeys, And to my patrons, thank you. And to those who want to become patrons, there's so much for you to access when you do. Take care, and you are worthy of love, honey. No matter how those evil thoughts in your head make you think you ain't.